Hello and welcome to the eSpeaks podcast, where leaders unpack technology shaping business strategy. I'm Corey Noles, and today we're tackling a big one, enabling Agentic AI, why data strategy is now business strategy. Agentic AI, or systems that can act autonomously to pursue goals, promises huge opportunity, but only for organizations that can get the data fundamentals right. Our guest today is Abhi Visuvasam, Field CTO of Enterprise Architecture and Solutions at Reltio. Abhi helps enterprises bridge architecture, data strategy, and product vision to safely unlock advanced AI. Over the next bit, we'll demystify Agentic AI a bit and dig into the business risks of weak data foundations and map the concrete moves leaders have to make today to win tomorrow. Abhi, how are you, sir?
Very good, thank you. And really excited about this. Thank you for having me on. And I think this is going to be a great conversation. I think everybody's talking about this topic, and it would be helpful to have another point of view on this.
It is very much the topic of the week right now. Is a lot of talk around data. You know, I guess if we're going to demystify Agentic AI a bit, I suppose we should start by defining it. What do you mean by Agentic AI, and how is it different from the AI most businesses are using today?
Yeah, this has been a conversation that's been going on for a while now, because everybody wants to define it a way that feels comfortable to them. And that is, what does agentic mean? Is it autonomous? Is there a human in the loop? And is it still considered agentic at that point, right? And how are you building these things to make it so that it's like a human that's operating on its own, using a level of intelligence and making some decisions that you as a human would also make along the same path. And so this concept of where do we draw the lines and say what is agentic? And I think it's all of it, okay? I think it's a huge category. It's a category that's being defined right now. And I think at the moment, it makes sense to throw everything in there and not to start weeding through it and start isolating one or the other. But I would say mainly it's about being able to make complex decisions in real time or near real time, the ability to do that. It's the ability for the process, I'm just going to call it a process for now, this capability to learn continuously. Whether it's learning while you're engaging with it and continuously driving it, or it's autonomously running and learning, it's doing a level of learning so that it's refining its output and refining its insights and what it's able to process. And last but not least, I think just like a human, I think it's able to work across multiple functions. Yeah. It's able to make intelligent decisions, not just about one specific area, but bring in other factors like we would do as humans in terms of making a decision and doing that. So that's where I see what I define as agentic AI and what I think we're trying to solve in the business.
Okay. So why should CDOs and CIOs care about this right now? What's the business upside if it's done right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people out there that I think are focused very heavily on things like productivity and cost efficiency and being able to take away some of the grunt work out of certain roles. There is a certain level of focus on looking at things and saying, hey, listen, I've got a team of data stewards that are doing some work for an organization, and they are bogged down with, for example, just reviewing the quality of data in one system. Yeah. Or targeting something in one platform, or looking at one category of data and working on that. And there's just so much inconsistency, so many quality issues and things like that in that one area that they're just focused in. And there's so much more happening in the organization they should be paying attention to, they should be working on. How do we scale these people? Is the answer to just get more people? It probably is not. It hasn't been for a long time. Yeah. For a long time, we're just finding different ways of automating these workflows, giving them more insight so they can work more efficiently. I think what we're realizing now is that with AI, we're able to get some of this productivity and cost efficiency in there. Okay. What if instead of them having to go there and do the work, heavy lifting work that they would do to assess the data quality of a specific provider or something in healthcare and make sure it's the right data, and they're comparing it with another provider record and making sure it's accurate. That level of work, they're doing that. What if we were to provide them with a report automatically that's done that comparison, and now they're just checking off and saying, yeah, that looks right, that looks right, that looks right. So that's where I think we're wanting to go in terms of efficiency. Speed at which you can make decisions. We can process probably 25, 30, 40, 50, 100 records faster than somebody can probably just individually look at one, two, or three. So
Yeah.
efficiency, and from that point of view, is also a huge gain. And at the end of the day, we have humans in the loop. And when you have humans in the loop, there is a possibility of making some mistakes. And if you get these
Mhm.
AI agents to be trained to a certain level and to bring them up to a certain level of quality, you can be assured that you're actually going to get some insights that are really valuable and quite accurate for them.
That's exactly right. You know, a lot of leaders worry about the hype around it. So what are some of the real business risks when organizations try to deploy advanced AI on a shaky data foundation?
Yeah, I don't know if you recently saw this report that just came out from MIT about AI, and
Yeah.
it's a lot of information. It's packed with information about there, and obviously the line that everybody's talking about is 95% of the AI projects fail, et cetera, et cetera. What is it? And when you look at across the board, what it comes down to, and I'll start with what it is at a very fundamental level. It's trust. Okay,
Hmm.
everybody's willing to trust AI, especially autonomous AI, in a very small scale,
Yeah.
where a human can look at it, measure its output, and say, "Yes, I trust that. This is
Mm.
perfectly great. This is wonderful, and it's exactly how I would have done it. So let's go forward with it and let's implement it." Okay, at the
Yeah.
same scale. Let's not grow it any bigger than this because we don't know the other factors that kind of play into this thing.
Yeah.
At a very fundamental level, trust seems to be the reason why these projects don't go from the smaller scale to the broader adopted production scale that people need in an organization to really move the needle on all the things like productivity, efficiency, risk management, and all of those things. So the going through this explanation, what I'm trying to get at really is that trust comes from having a really solid data foundation that you can trust, that people are already in the organization have trusted and said, yes, this is the data that we build our business on, our core entities, our core business objects that we want to look at and say, hey, this is what we run our business on, and we trust this data set. If you can get to that point. So one of the things I think that we've found really useful is having a solid data foundation, especially using a platform like an MDM platform like Reltio, and hunkering down on having unified data. First of all, it's brought in from multiple sources and unified, and then it's cleansed and created into this trusted golden copy that everybody in the organization agrees on. Now you build on top of that with something like an AI initiative. There's a level of trust that you automatically inherit,
Hmm.
and then you can go from there. And then from there, you can then start to build in some other additional, unique capabilities, differentiating capabilities that you want to do. But you can always ground yourself in the fact that you've got this agreed upon trusted foundation.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you've argued that data readiness can be a competitive advantage. And I know that a lot of companies aren't there yet. What does data readiness actually look like in an enterprise that wants agentic AI?
Well, data readiness is something that I think our customers are asking us for, and they're saying that they need it. But one of the things that we're able to tell some of our customers, the ones that have already invested in our platform and are very adopted it across their business, is that the beauty of what Reltio has done in its platform is that it gets you data ready for this AI world already. Okay,
Yeah.
so there are people out there saying, "Hey, I want to be data ready. I want to be data ready." I think the opportunity is that if you already have a platform like Reltio, unifying your data, you are data ready. You are on your journey to being data ready. But what do you need on top of that? What you need on top of that is the ability to for that platform to be seamlessly integrated with what you want to do with AI.
Yes.
Okay, it's one thing to have good data, okay, but then you need all these integration points, ability to go and reach into this system and pull
Mhm.
out the data that you need to then create your agents and create your differentiating characteristics in your agentic initiatives. So I think the key here with respect to data readiness is you need that trusted data.
Mhm.
Platform provides you that, especially if you've invested in a platform like Reltio. You need connected data, and that is data from various parts of your organization connected and built together in this this wonderful graph that we have, and I absolutely love the concept of how we have invested so heavily in building out this data graph that has naturally speaks to AI. It just naturally speaks to AI because AI
Oh,
in
that's
general
fantastic.
is something that requires context, it requires data to be stitched together so that it can then look at this, build those, use those relationships, and draw more insights out of it. So I love the fact that we have this graph-based context that's giving us all this rich data, and then of course you got to make this data accessible. Anything that you're doing with AI, especially things like chatbots and all of these things, there's a certain level of human interaction, and humans don't like to wait a long time. So you want to make this data accessible. You want to make it as real time and as available as possible for that kind of millisecond type of interactions. So across the board, if you look at this, a platform like Reltio will get you that data readiness right out of that box.
Yeah.
And then from there, the sky's the limit in what you can actually do with your AI initiatives.
That's right. You gotta kind of have your house in order first, and that's been a struggle I know for a lot of companies along the way, and it's a topic that keeps coming up. So I think it's really cool that there's this engine that kind of handles that for you.
Absolutely.
So in this space, like governance and trust are huge, obviously. How do you design governance that enables agentic behaviors without stifling innovation?
Yeah, governance is as everybody knows in the data world, uh, governance is a necessary evil, and that's the way people perceive it, right?
Yeah.
They perceive it as being something heavy and something that kind of sits on top of all this fun work that we want to
The
do.
buzzkill, yeah.
The exactly, for a more accurate term, yeah, absolutely, buzzkill. That's the way people kind of perceive governance, and in this AI world and where we're going with data and that needs to be trusted and data that's going to be ultimately at some point in the future, near future, we're seeing agents being autonomous, right? And when something is running autonomously and it's starting to just work on its own and it's running hundreds of thousands of iterations on data, you better be sure that it's coming to the right conclusions.
Yes.
You better be sure it's making those decisions, and especially if those insights that are being at that scale are being then disseminated to customers or partners or suppliers or whatever it is that's consuming this data. You have to be sure that it's correct. So governance is now coming back into vogue. It's becoming fashionable to be to have governance, and there's
right.
multiple layers of governance now that people are actually wanting. So one of the first things that governance teams are looking for is what data are you operating on? What is the quality of the data that you're operating on? Are we elevating this quality of data? When you look at something like Reltio, it immediately exposes your organization's quality of data. Okay, in a good way. Okay, this is absolutely a good thing. When you start to pull in data from all these different sources, and you're starting to bring it into Reltio, and you're starting to work with that data in the single platform, immediately you start to see the quality of data coming in from various sources. Your governance practice levels up because you have insight and you have visibility into something that for a long time was either anecdotal or for a long time was just managed in silos.
Yeah.
So you have some of this. Now, once you brought it here, governance requires transparency. Governance says, hey, let's open up this box and let's show us what the data looks like so that we can operate on it. Reltio allows you to kind of do that right out of the gate. And at the end of the day, transparency and governance will ultimately lead to what is the most important thing in your organization, that's ultimately having trust. When people can see what's going on transparently, and that they know it's governed properly and it's managed properly end to end, they will start to build that trust. And building that trust, again, we talked about it, is the foundation for that agentic AI initiatives to start to take.
And it's not just this first wave of what you're trying to build. You're building the foundation for the path forward for years. This feels like such a big, important task that companies should be prioritizing.
Yeah, and I think if you remember the history of how legacy platforms and concepts of just MDM was just stuck in the the back office. Yeah, it was pushed back there, and it was a few hardcore data engineers and people that love data for the sake of being data engineers. They were working on this thing, and it was a hot project for them. Of course, we know that life sciences and the financial services industry and banking and all of this that are insurance included, that are all highly regulated. They anchored on master data, and they started to use that very effectively because they needed that. They needed that for compliance. They needed that for managing risk. They needed that for all kinds of audit purposes, right? So it was such a back office thing. But Reltio, all the time, in Reltio, we always believed that, listen, as much as you want to push it to the back office and say that's some department out there that's working on MDM, we think having trusted data applies to the whole organization, and it's going to come to the forefront at some point when people start to prioritize data.
Yeah.
Literally right now with AI, and especially with Agentic AI, this is being pushed to the front of the conversation, the front of every discussion, and being said, do you have this in place? If you have this in place, you can do AI. If you don't, good luck, is where we're at right now. And it's proving itself out in a lot of cases. So having this foundation is becoming very, very valuable. And companies are really starting to focus on that and starting to realize that that time invested in this foundation has not gone wasted. It's accelerated everything.
Absolutely. This is the time where if your data is not in good shape, this is where you pause and you deal with that. And move forward from there. I totally agree with you. So from an architecture perspective, what are some common anti-patterns that trip up teams building agentic systems, and how do you fix those?
Yeah, we've thought about this for a while. Again, the agentic systems and what's tripping them up is nothing, in essence, nothing new. Okay, it's the same thing that's been tripping up organizations for years. So we've been solving this problem for years, and we've been providing tools and capabilities on our platform to overcome this for a very long time. So as long as you've anchored on a platform like Reltio and you're building that deep data foundation, bringing in data, unifying it, mastering it, cleansing it, and keeping it in a platform like this, you're actually solving some of those issues already. And some of those issues are, an organization that doesn't have this data foundation is struggling with fragmented data. You got bits and pieces of the truth. Okay. It's the whole story is everything connected together would be the truth. But you've got bits and pieces of it all over the place. And fundamentally, you are then put in a position to have to figure out how to piece them together. Okay. And of course, there's many ways to do it, and there's right and wrong ways to do it. There's also the risk of not knowing if you have data you can trust. Just because a certain business area has been using a certain set of data for a long time and operating on it, doesn't mean the rest of the business perceives that data the same way. We've gone to customers and they've had long debates about what the word customer means to that customer. You'll be in a big meeting, you'll have plenty of stakeholders there. One person will define it one way, and the rest of the team will just go off and start to debate it. And a place like Reltio, when you're bringing in all this customer data into this one location and mastering it, gives you an opportunity to kind of unify that and have that agreed upon, concept of what a customer is. So first of all, for fragmented data, silos, and things like that, mitigating that will definitely help with your agentic initiatives. Making sure you have good, clean, unified data. Making sure your data is actually connected. That's another thing. This is something that I think is so downplayed, and I think the value of this is immeasurable. When you have various bits of data that's connected in an organization and brought into a platform like Reltio, there are relationships that are formed.
Yeah.
These relationships are very valuable. When you have these kind of relationships, and you especially have data describing these relationships, that's where the magic happens. If you just have a customer in isolation and a product in isolation, it means nothing to a business until you can connect them and say, this customer bought this product on this particular date and any other attributes you have about it. And this is how much use they've gotten out of it, or this is what they're doing with it, right? That's when you really start to build. So Reltio, another thing about data is having connected data, being able to connect the dots between these things. Again, it's something that comes very naturally with our platform. And I find that it just sets the stage for doing anything agentic, trying to unlock value from that so much easier.
Oh, I bet it is. Yeah, and having the right plumbing, for lack of a better word, in place to make sure that everything can communicate. That's a huge issue right now. Can you share a short example, maybe, or a use case where getting data strategy right unlocked some tangible agentic AI capability, and maybe what changed?
Yeah, I mean, where we're going with this. So first of all, across the board, across all our customers and all our prospects out there, agentic AI is at the cutting edge of what they want to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so at any given point, it's rare that you find a customer that's completely automated an agentic process and they're completely in production and they're moving on. As a matter of fact, I think MIT clarified that for us. There's 5% of customers out there that are actually in that production
Yeah.
scale. Okay, so having said that, what we're doing is we are helping our customers build these agents. Okay, we're just taking it to the next level. So I want to talk a little bit about exactly how we're kind of playing in this arena, and not just giving them the data foundation. We're not just giving them data foundation and say, hey, you leave you to your devices to go solve this thing. That would be unfair. And we realize that's not where the value is. The value is actually helping them unlock the value from the data foundation that they've set. So we've built multiple AI capabilities right now, and we're already in production and it's GA. And one of our key products, and I think this is just such a differentiator for us, is Agent Flow.
Yeah.
And Agent Flow is our conversational AI interface that works with Reltio and gives you the ability to use natural language to get insights and engage with our platform, our intelligent data graph that we have built. And so if you have the data that's built into Reltio and you've got to bring all of it in here and you start to unify the data in here, you've got it in our platform, you can get into Agent Flow and start to build agents right there, right on it. You can also start to engage with the data in natural language. And it gives you a platform that can also be connected to other agentic platforms to start bringing all of that together and create this like agent to agent type engaged operations. So what we're doing is, since we have this platform out there, we've got the data foundation, of course. We're also on a huge initiative to build 100 agents in 100 days. So we're starting, yeah, and that's a bold initiative.
It is.
It is, but we're well on our way, and it's something that we're actively doing right now. We're also working with our partners. We're also working with customers. We're doing things like doing forward deployed engineers, putting them out there in customers and listening to their pain points of what these personas are experiencing, and starting to say, hey, that's an agent, and this is how you can do it, and starting to work hand in hand with them and deploy these. So at the end of the day, what we expect is to have some really a marketplace of agents that customers can look at and go and see themselves in and say, hey, I'm a life sciences company. My data stewards are facing this problem. This is an agent that's from the marketplace that I can readily just move over into Agent Flow and execute, get the insights that I need and the actions that I can follow. That's where we're going.
That makes so much sense, sort of templatization of them a little bit, where you can
Absolutely.
hop in and pop in your own credentials, which it can probably do on its own. And
Absolutely. And you know, we have customers that I know customers want to be unique. They are unique. They're
yeah,
unique in what they're selling. They always want to differentiate themselves and do all these things. But the data problems we're solving aren't that unique in that sense.
yeah,
It's very common across industry, right? So these agents that we're working on, in any form, in some form or the other, are applicable across industry. Anybody can consume them. So by creating this marketplace and creating this opportunity for people to do this, we think they're going to get instant productivity, and that's our goal. Our goal is instant productivity. And I'll add one more thing that I want to talk about just briefly. Is I think adoption is something that is the biggest issue going on with the agentic experiments and initiatives companies are working on. They're great with an experiment, but they want to now adopt it and move it along. That's where they're starting to struggle. We are heavily focused on adoption. We're not just about proving an agentic flow works. We can prove that. A lot of people can prove that.
yeah.
We want to talk about adoption. We want to talk about putting it into production and at scale and getting it operational. That's where we want to be focused.
That makes sense, and that's where you need to be. How building on that, how should executive teams measure progress and success when they are investing in data foundations for agentic AI? What KPIs really matter?
Yeah, I mean, from a KPI point of view, there's a lot around, agents. How quickly are you getting this agent out to market, or how quickly are you able to solve some kind of a problem in volume? How many of these problems are you able to solve? For example, if it's a data stewarding agent resolving some kind of a specific scenario in stewardship. Maybe it's enriching a profile and they all have to go and do a web search really quickly and enrich a profile. The KPI would be how long does it take a data steward to do it? How costly is it for them to do it manually? And then if you're able to do it with an agentic flow at a rate of 50 a minute or something to that effect, where it's automatically doing this research for you, then you're saving some money. So those are the standard KPIs that you can use to measure. I think one of the most important KPIs, and we just talked about it, is the adoption KPI. The time and money you invest to experiment and build out an agentic capability for you to get it in production at scale, working for you, and then resulting in that business outcome that you wanted, that actual tangible business outcome in terms of saving money, whether it was in resources, whether it was in time, that operational efficiency that you gain, productivity that you gain. That's the measurement they should be focused on.
Yeah.
And all of these will get you to that point. And it's great to measure how quickly you developed an agent. It's great to measure how efficient the agent is and all of that. But at the end of the day, I think they should still focus on the most important thing, is the business outcomes and what they've always been focused on.
I agree. The truth is, it's if you're not seeing the differences there, it's not working yet.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly.
So for leaders ready to move and hit the ground running, what is a pragmatic 90-day plan to start turning data strategy into a business strategy for agentic AI?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, like, what would I tell leaders in general, in 90 days, what can you do and how quickly can you get, and 90 days is a long time, believe it or not, in our industry right now, because in 90 days, I guarantee you AI strategy and AI thought process and AI technologies would have evolved quite a lot in 90 days.
Yeah.
But, jokingly, I can very easily say in 90 days, you can start from scratch and you can have Reltio implemented and working in your organization. we have a 90-day methodology. We can get you onboarded and get you with this data readiness platform. So that's part of our strategy. But, putting that aside, I think what you really need to start on is understand where you are as a business. Do you have the data foundation, and do you have the technology in place? And I'll say that thing, right? Say the thing, technology. You need the technology to make this foundation happen. You're not going to build it from scratch. You're not going to do this. DIY doesn't work in this case, okay? And as much as people like to think that it does. Do you have this technology? Do you have the ability to build this data foundation? Take a really good, quick, hard look at that. Okay, and the answer is going to be very quick. And that if you don't have a platform like Reltio, if you don't have that kind of capabilities, both everything from analytical use cases that can be driven by it to operational use cases and real-time capability, if you don't have that, you're starting off on the wrong foot. You're already behind. Okay, so I would say you start with that. Next, I would say once you have that kind of a data foundation, really focus in on the use case. Hone in on the use case that you want to solve for, and make sure it's a use case that will benefit from AI. Okay, absolutely make sure it'll benefit from AI. AI is not the hammer for you to be walking around and looking for a nail. Okay, so
That's right.
make sure it'll benefit from AI. And I think the age-old philosophy of just start small and think big, of course. Start small but scale fast, I think applies to all of these.
Agreed. And the idea of doing that all yourself, I can see why the temptation's there. You might think this is going to be cheaper, we can do this, but the truth is, you might still be building it 9 months from now.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
you need to move fast. Today is about speed.
It's not just that they'll be building it for 9 months from now, and I just say one more thing about that is you spend a lot of time and effort and resources building it for a specific use case or a specific scale that at that time.
Yeah.
And scale changes in business very quickly. And all of a sudden, you find that what you built can't scale, right? And there's so many other aspects to this that you need to think about than just building it for one specific use case. So, not to digress, but DIY doesn't work in this world.
It really doesn't. I agree. Abhi, that was an excellent look at how data strategy has become such a strategic foundation for the next wave of AI-driven business. Thanks so much for sharing, some concrete frameworks, real-world examples that people can run with and better understand what it is they need to do next. Where can readers go to learn a little more about Reltio?
Well, I mean, we have our website, Reltio.com. Go right over there and engage there. We have various ways to reach out to us. Of course, you can always find me on LinkedIn, and you can reach out to me and anybody in our organization. And yeah, there's just so much going on in this space, and we are at the bleeding edge of this, forging new territory, especially for a platform that has its history in MDM. For us to be forging this kind of agentic future for data, I think it says a lot about the way we think about the future and the way we think about our platform and where we're going with this.
I agree. Well, Abhi, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a lot of fun. It's been an interesting talk. I've learned a lot as we went.
Yeah, thank you, Corey. Appreciate the time.
Absolutely. Well, thank you to everyone watching today for joining us here on eSpeaks. Subscribe, leave a comment with your biggest data challenge. We want to hear about the struggles you're facing day to day too. I'm Corey Noles, and we'll see you back here next time. Thanks for watching.